English 1B, Elements of the Academic Essay, The Beginning. A good introduction does three things. It opens with a strong title and hook, provides only the necessary background or context for the argument, and ends with an argumentative thesis statement, which is always the last sentence of the introduction paragraph. Let's start with the title. It is important to create a title that identifies the subject of your paper as well as your unique angle or idea. The subject of your paper is your particular topic or the work you are interpreting. So, if you are writing about a poem, the author and poem are the subject of the essay. But there's more. Add to this subject your idea about the poem, a hint of your interpretation. Then you will have a strong title. For example, you might argue that Wallace Stevens' poem The Snowman is affirmative rather than nihilistic. A title for this paper might be something like Affirming Nothingness, Interpreting Wallace Stevens' The Snowman. Be creative with titles, but be sure to give your reader a clear understanding of your subject and a hint of your argument. In the first sentence, use a hook or opener to draw the reader's attention to your topic. You can get a reader's attention by telling a story, providing a statistic, pointing out something strange or interesting, or discussing an interesting quote. Begin your paper with an original approach rather than a cliché or general idea. For example, you might begin with a sentence such as, Imagine yourself all alone on an icy, wind-swept field in the middle of nowhere, except that you are actually a snowman. Also, note that your hook follows directly from your title to start off your argument for meaning. Working with the title, the hook begins to narrow the focus of the paper. The sentences following the hook provide background or context for your argument. The hook has already done its job of narrowing the focus, so avoid general ideas or unnecessary background. The goal is to set up your argument. In these sentences, tell your readers what they need to know to get their bearings on your topic, such as who wrote the work you're writing about or how the work fits into a genre or movement. For example, you could mention that Stevens published the poem in 1921 during the Modernist period, or that the poem is influenced by Imagism. Then move on to introduce the central ideas, themes, or forms the reader will need to know about to understand your thesis. Stevens is a philosophical poet interested in how we think, in the nature of being, the ephemeral nature of existence, and so on. The key here is to introduce the relevant background, relevant to your argument. All of the sentences in your introduction lead your reader to a specific and debatable thesis statement. Remember, the thesis statement is always the last sentence of the introduction. After reading your thesis statement, your reader will expect the paper to prove and demonstrate this, and only this, debatable claim for meaning. Let's break down the thesis statement into two components. Your thesis expresses your argument or position as a claim, that is, what you claim to be meaningful, and a rationale, or the main reason or main approach for this claim. In other words, a thesis succinctly states what idea or understanding you are arguing for, and how or why. Here is a possible thesis statement. Although the poem acknowledges that existence is transient, Stevens' Snowman offers us an affirmation of life in the concept of nothing that is. Another thesis might be, using paradox and imagery, Stevens embraces the fullness of nothingness that only the mind can conceive. See if you can distinguish the claim element from the rationale element in these statements. Think of it this way. When you create a thesis, you are entering a debate over meaning, and your claim is your conviction. Your conviction, what you believe is meaningful, is rooted in a set of reasons or a reasoning process that you have thought through carefully. Imagine your reader asking you, "Why do you think this?" or "How did you come to this conclusion?" Providing answers to how and why will show your reader where you are headed and indicate that you are ready to defend your ideas. Let's review. Your title, hook, background, context, and thesis all work together to narrow the focus of your paper and chart the course of the paragraphs to follow. When you build your essay with these elements in mind, you create a structure for your ideas. Structure, organization, helps your reader understand you. As a writer, this is your main goal. Okay, that's it for the beginning. Up next, the middle, the body paragraphs.